Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's me, Big Z. I have a theory that I'd like to discuss with you guys, and I don't know how you guys are going to like it. This is aimed at the Muslim Ummah in particular, or only really. I've made some notes here to make sure that I don't drift off while I'm talking up, because I'm going to be very emotional about it when I talk to you guys, but I believe it's going to be of some sort of benefit. Now, I remember always hearing since I was a child that why is the Muslim Ummah asleep? Why are we sleeping? Why don't we do anything? Why don't we, motivate ourselves and organize ourselves to do something, And after quite a lot of experiences, I've developed this theory. The theory is opinion, of course, and our opinion is based on my experiences. So in order for me to explain that to you, I do have to kind of bitch a little bit and tell you about the experiences that I've had. And hopefully you'll understand my point of view, and I'm sure lots of people out there will hear this and say, yeah, I can relate to such and such experiences. And you guys have to realize my experiences span across 3 different countries on 3 different continents. So, alhamdulillah for that, but astaghfirullah for what I've seen. So, I will tell you about the experiences first. Now, first things first, a lot of you people know that I went to Pakistan to try and make some sort of a difference over there. And in the 15 years that I've been there, 15 plus years arguably, let's just say, unfortunately, there's not much very good that's happening in Pakistan, and many of us already know that. Lots of people don't want to go over there to do any, charitable work, because every time you try to do charitable work or any decent work, you get stopped by the institutions that are in place, or even worse, by the people. Even sometimes the people you're trying to help unwittingly. And there are too many examples for me to quote, but I'm sure lots of people out there know. I do remember once we went to a university, Punjab University, and there was a department specifically for looking at how to develop completely destitute and underdeveloped villages, right? We went to them, my sister and I, we sat with them for a good hour, and we kept on explaining to them that, look, we want to make a model village that all of Pakistan can replicate, and at least we can try ourselves to try and make more villages. And if I remember correctly, the first thing they kept on asking was, why do you want to do this? And every time we said, look, we want to do something for the good of Pakistan or for the good of the Ummah, they just couldn't register. They just couldn't, relate to it. They just couldn't believe that was the answer that we had. They thought there was some sort of ulterior motive. And I get it that you're kind of used to that, but then when someone is saying that specifically again and again and again, and showing with their actions that they don't have the ulterior motive for dunya, they want it for akhirah, then you might want to work with them. But after we got past the point where they were asking why, this is the department that was set up specifically to help underdeveloped villages. I remind you again. We sat with them, we said to them, we want to create cottage industries for, the women there that are unemployed. They can make their saris and the whatever dresses that they make for women that buy very expensive materials over in the big cities, so that they can earn some money. We want to develop schools there. We want to develop running water there. We just need your guys' help to tell us how to do it. The end of the conversation, the conclusion was, there's 4 or 5 of those people there, and they said basically, it can't be done in Pakistan. That's a very common thing in Pakistan. People just say it can't be done. Not realizing what they're actually saying is, we don't want to do it. Or even worse, we don't want you to do it. Which is very sad. Another example I can give outside of that was in the fight game, for example. A lot of you guys know I'm involved in the fight game. Amir Khan, international big boxer, obviously from Bolton. Pakistani as well. I think at least twice he's announced that he's going to start a boxing league in Pakistan. To the point where they've even held the tryouts, they've made the teams, lots of famous people have bought teams. And I know some of the fighters, and after a little stay in Canada, I was in Canada for 7-8 months, I came back to Pakistan to hear about it, and the fighters were complaining to me that Zubair, they said it was going to happen in July, then they said it was going to happen in October, then they said it was going to happen in the new year, as in 2019, and then they said it was going to happen after Eid, and 2 or 3 times a year we've had to cut weight in order to go for the fight, and then they cancel the plan. And now, they made the announcement early 2018, I'm uploading this in 2019, June of 2019, nothing's happened yet, so the fighters just got dust around. And there you go. So I feel so sorry for them, to people who are deserving, who try to get somewhere. Nobody gives them the opportunities, or even worse, destroys their opportunities. That's bitching about Pakistan, but never mind that. I come over to the UK and I give an example over here. I was in Cambridge for a short period of time, And I had just gone to a gym, I had just gone to training, and on my way home I figured it's Isha Jamaat time, or at least it's Isha time, sorry. I'll go to the local masjid and I'll read my Isha. Now this was a Friday late night. And I went, I believe it was 8 or 9 o'clock, I can't remember. No, slightly before that. So it was towards autumn, winter time. I go in, I'm reading my Isha, and there's a man there, he's giving a little speech. There's 10 odd people there sitting there, one with his son, and there's all over 25 years old, maybe over 30 actually, come to think of it. And the man is giving a speech, it was a khatam of some sort, and he's talking about the meaning of life. Now the problem was, the things he was talking about were things that should have been taught to us when we were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And I get it, sometimes you need a reminder, but that reminder has to have some sort of context. There was no context. He's just saying that Allah made us to worship Him. It says so in the Quran. He made the jinn to worship Him. Nothing new, nothing productive. Now you have to notice, I reiterate, this was a Friday night in a student city, Cambridge, where things are happening. You can go out, you can do anything you want to, right? You can party, you can hang out with your friends, you can do anything on a Friday night. And rather than have some sort of topic that would engage and interest the Muslim community there, right? Especially in a student city like Cambridge, and especially on that intellectual level that sort of campus is known for, nothing that engages them. What do you think people are going to do? They're just not going to turn up, are they? They're just going to walk away because it's boring. And I got agitated. And there was a couple of people there that happened to be on the committee, and I walked up to them and I said, look, who is your activities officer? And they said, what? I said, look, you've got a committee, right? Who is your activities officer? You know, the person in charge of making things happen or making activities. And they said, we don't have such thing. We just have members on the committee and that's it. I said, okay, fair enough. That's too much to expect for a Muslim committee to have such names or titles or anything like that. And now what happened next was something I wasn't entirely proud of, but I wasn't entirely wrong for either. How I expressed myself and how I expressed my concerns, it could have been better. But the point is, well, let me just tell you first. I said to them, look, I said exactly all this. It's a Friday night in a student happening city. People can go out and do what they want, right? Instead of talking about something that can mentally engage them, that can, really work the cerebral cortex. These people are talking about things that you should have learned when you were a kid from your parents. So why do you think that people are not coming to the masjid for such activities? Why do they want to hang around people that are going to talk about the boring stuff rather than the beautiful stuff about Islam? Na'udhu billah. I don't mean that Islam is boring or anything in Islam is boring. But if you repeat the same thing again and again and again, then you've made it boring. Right? Oh, you have to read your namaz. Oh, you have to read your namaz. Oh, you have to read your namaz. Yes, we get that. Right? When Allah Ta'ala has ordered us 700 times in the Quran to tell us to read namaz. Right, that's not to bore us, that's to reiterate the importance of reading namaz. I get that. But if you are just only going to talk about the one topic rather than the other beautiful things that are in Islam, you're going to scare people away because you're just making Islam seem boring. Now, I told this to them, they called the person over who gave the speech as well, and I expressed my concerns to them. But look, today, I remember this specifically, I said to them, that why shouldn't I just go out to the cinema and watch the new RoboCop that was released at the time? Now, it's a different situation whether you like the movie or not. The point is that I remember that vividly saying that to them. And the first thing they said was, astaghfirullah, you shouldn't say things like that. You shouldn't go out to go watch movies. And I said, okay, fine. But if you're talking about boring topics, why should I stay? And I will never forget how the guy turned to me, right, and spoke to me. He said, after I said to him, look, you're speaking about boring topics. People are walking away. People are not going to come to the masjid because of this. You know what he said? He said, that is your opinion. Look at the hand action. Look at the way he was talking. I remember this specifically. That is your opinion, he said. There's another way of saying, shut your damn mouth. Who are you to talk to me? Now, I look back at that conversation I had with them, and I started arguing them for a good an hour and a half, and I realized to myself afterwards that why am I even bothering with these people if they don't want to even listen? My presentation could have been better, but the point that I was raising was not in fault. It was not in fault. I was absolutely right. Alhamdulillah, and I've checked myself again and again with other people, and they agree with me on that point. But it was so bad, that debate, that the next Jummah that I went there to read Jummah, one of the people that were there, who was part of that argument, if you like, he genuinely walked up to me and said, what are you doing here? As if to say, well, you shouldn't be here, You had a horrible argument. What's the point of you coming back to this masjid? And I just said to him, it's Jummah time, it's the masjid, I've come to read Jummah, what's the problem with that? And he went quiet. So, well, that's the UK. And there's plenty of other examples in the UK, but I'm going to give that one because I felt that one was a vivid example of people who are pushing Muslims away, younger, especially the youth, away from the Muslim community. Not just the masjid, but the Muslim community, right? Because you got to remember the masjid is kind of central and pivotal to a Muslim community. And if that is at fault, or the people who are running it are at fault, then of course, you're pushing the youth away from the Muslim community at large, right? Because that's what they're going to make the connection to. Canada. Now, some of you guys know I was in Canada for a few months. I even hosted an MMA event in Canada. Now, in the Muslim community there, a friend of mine who invited me into that city said we should do something here in this city with the Muslims. I said, yeah, that's great. Met one of the people on the masjid committee. And he said to us, my friend and I, that look, just wait for a minute. There are lots of people like you, very highly energetic, want to do something for the Muslim community. I will tell you a date when we can all sit together and meet and talk about what we can do. Now, my other friend couldn't make it because he was out of city at the time, I remember. And this person finally called us for this meeting, this great meeting with all these people who were so excited to do something for the Muslim community. There was only one other person that turned up. So it was the person who called me, myself, and a third person, and that was it. Now, this gentleman who had called me was nearly my father's age, right? But I said to him before that I'm very blunt after all of my experiences in life. I said to him that, let me get this straight. You delayed this meeting because there were lots of other people who wanted to come together and talk about the things that we could do to bring the Muslim community together. And none of them showed up. None of them, because the other person just came because he was curious. None of them showed up. And you're telling me you want to make some sort of change in the community? He held his head in shame. You know, I said, I'm sorry, but that's the fact. You're the one who delayed it. And you were telling me, you were guaranteeing to me that these people want to come and do something for the Muslim community. So where are they? I said, all right, we'll try something else. We'll try something a lot more simple. We won't even talk about doing something with the Muslim community, right? A lot of the Muslims in that particular locality, they were complaining that alcohol and drugs were a lot more easier to access for the Muslim boys. And some of them, they were losing their path because they were going through alcoholism. They were getting involved in drugs, right? So I said to them, I have a better idea, right? Let's just keep it simple. Let's not talk about anything fancy. Let's concentrate on the kids because the kids have a lot more higher energy. Yes, they're going left, right, and center. So why don't we tell the parents, I have an idea. Let's just have a basketball match, okay? I don't know basketball. Basketball's the thing in that community. Let's just, I'll buy a basketball after a particular namaz on one day. Let's all go to the basketball court that's behind the masjid, play some ball, and that's it. That's just get them excited to be a part of something. And they all said yes. See, there was one representative in that particular masjid. He said to me, yeah, Zubair, I'll tell them all. I won't be in the city at the time. I've got to be in another place. But we'll tell them all that next Friday after Asr Jamaat, not after Jamaat, after Asr Jamaat, it's summer, it's sunny, so we'll go out and we'll come as a together community, we'll go and play some Kabul. I turned up after Asr Jamaat, again, literally nobody. Even though they said, hi, yeah, we'll come, we'll get involved with it. Nobody came. So, there you go, across 3 continents, one example of each. And some people are going to say, yeah, but that's one example. By Allah, I have uncountable examples of something stupid happening on each community, right? In each community, in each country, on each continent. So essentially, the people who are moaning and groaning about the problems that we have, and that's the amazing thing. You have the capacity to make even the smallest of steps, and you don't bother to do that. So what do you expect to happen? You know, how can you hope to change anything if you're not even willing to change yourself? It's so childish a concept by now. You should understand this. Allah's not going to help you until you help yourself. You're not even going to risk, right, bothering getting out of a couch on a Saturday morning because you want to have something better for your community, for your children, for your own people, in your immediate community. Why are you moaning and groaning that all the Muslim people are being persecuted across the world? It serves you right. You who have the capacity to do something, don't do anything. I remember specifically one Imam of a masjid. He said, if you know what's about, if all the British Pakistanis, not all the British Muslims, the British Pakistanis got together and wanted to change the condition of the Muslim world, they could do that very easily and they wouldn't even have to leave the country. The punchline, the man who told me that was actually an Indian Muslim. Right? And he wasn't just saying that out of spite, he was saying that out of joy and saying that out of power, because he was talking to some young people, of which I was included there, that these people wanted to make a difference in the community. You know? So, you know, he wasn't trying to say anything out of spite at the time. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, recently there's this new craze of this new TV show, right? Ertugrul, I believe it's called. It's a Turkish TV series talking about about the start of the Ottoman Empire, I believe, right? Which is weird to me because remember what I was talking about back then about the guy in Cambridge who says, oh, astaghfirullah, you shouldn't go watch movies, but the very same type of people are going to watch a TV series instead. So what's the difference? And if it was The Message, right, all the Muslim community, they know about the movie The Message, right? If that was being shown on the cinema, we'd all rush to go watch that. But the very same people, if we're going to watch another movie, oh, how dare you? That's a bit selective outrage, isn't it? And anyway, sorry, going back to this Ertugrul, right? Ertugrul is talking, you know, people watch Ertugrul because it makes them feel better, right? If you wanted to learn about history, you'd read a book. But you watch Ertugrul because it's entertaining. And why else are you watching it? Because it makes you feel nice. Some people can say Allah's name very nicely, say a bit of poetry. That's about it. It doesn't actually add value to your life, other than it's a pastime. It's like any other TV show, right? And I get it. To a certain extent, I would get it. But you're not learning anything from it. Some people deceive themselves and think that they're learning from it. You're not learning from it. Absolutely not. Because as I said, you could have read from a book. And guess what? Let me tell you something about the great Ottoman Empire. Allah forgive me, but let me just make a point. In 1445, the printing press was made by a man in Germany called Johannes Gutenberg. Now, 1445 was when the printing press was made. And the Ottoman Empire said that we are not going to allow the printing press into our community. It was Ahmed II, let me double check my notes. No, sorry. Bayezid II in 1485 made a point in saying we're not allowing the printing press in our community. Right? And then the following Sultan Salim I in 1515 said the same thing. We are not allowing the printing press in our community. Why not? I don't get it. Right? Okay, suppose you want to keep writing the Quran with hand because there's barakah in writing the Quran by hand. I get that. What about all the other knowledge in the world? Why did you restrict that? Finally, Sultan Ahmed, that's the one I was just mentioning before, in 1727, he said, okay, fine, allow the printing press in so we could learn more knowledge. He gave it to a guy named Ibrahim. I forgot his other name. And Ibrahim something. And in his family, from 1727 to 1797, only ever managed to print out 21 books in that entire period. Why? Because again, the Ottoman Empire kept on interfering with them to try and not allow them printing books at all. And finally, they gave up. 1797. Right? That's not the Middle Ages. That was near the time of the Industrial Revolution. Right? This is near the time when all the other world's getting on with their scientific discovery. We're not even allowed to print books in the Ottoman Empire. So what greatness are you aspiring when you're watching Ertugrul? Exactly. And A'udhu this isn't just a blind dig at the Ottoman Empire. What you have to understand is history you're supposed to learn from so you don't repeat it. Right? You are doomed to repeat the mistakes of history if you don't learn from them. History isn't just there just to reminisce over the good times. What good is that then? When a parent teaches their child something new about their experiences, right? It's new for them. It's because the parent went through those experiences, right? Even if it's not a parent, an elder went through some negative experiences and they want to express that to the child. That, look, this will happen if you do something wrong. Otherwise, what's the point of your experience? What's the point of an elder giving that experience? So that is the problem, that you guys are watching TV shows. Maybe you guys are organizing mehfils. You guys probably give some money to charity every now and then just to make yourselves feel good. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty, the hard stuff where you have to pick yourself up and you have to go and do something actively, proactively, rather than reactively, you fall short. Or even worse, you cut off the legs of other people who are trying to do something. You gotta understand, one mind by themselves, one person by themselves cannot change the entire community, cannot change the world. You know why? Because he has to have somebody backing him. or she for that matter. He or she needs somebody backing them. You can't look up to leaders if you're not going to back the leaders that are willing to do the things that even you weren't allowed to do. And supporting someone, by the way, doesn't just mean sitting in the background saying, hey, he's doing something great. It means actively getting involved in the work that they are doing. Best example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You don't think that one man could have changed the world by himself? With his one dua, he could have changed the entire world. With his one request of Allah. But even he had a following. Even he had Sahaba Kiram. And that model is there for us to emulate, right? For us to replicate. We choose not to. So for all you people who are moaning and groaning that the Ummah is asleep, just have a self-reflection and see if it is not yourself that's actually asleep, or your immediate community that's not asleep. Spending millions and millions of pounds on making horrendously lavish masajids, chandeliers that themselves are worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of pounds, right? Just to go off slightly on a tangent to show the type of wastefulness that our community is getting involved into, rather than doing something a lot more productive. Now, helping the Muslim orphan kids, helping Muslims that have got stuck in prison for some reason, maybe for example, right? It's no point glorifying an idea of people helping the Syrians or the Syrians or the Yemenis or anything like that. Or the Chinese Muslims that are suffering right now. You just sit there with your hands in your head, thinking, oh, what can we do for the Muslim Ummah? Stop asking the question as an excuse and look for the actual answer for that question. What can you do? What can you actually do? It's unfortunate that by Allah, Allah is listening, the Malaika are writing, by Allah, every single time I want to do something with the Muslim community, either they failed me, they shut me out, or they became a hindrance. Every time. And this is not just me. My cousin, Imran Shah, mashallah, he's currently, at the time of recording, he's the president of MPACUK. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. Mashallah, while he was here in the UK, the amount of movement that they did, they kicked out a racist MP from Oldham, I do remember. There's lots of things that they other do as well. So the people who are actually wanting to do something, you guys don't back. So what's the point? Stop asking, why is the Muslim Ummah asleep? Start thinking, what do I have to do? How far outside of my comfort zone am I willing to go to try and help the Muslim Ummah myself? Ask that question. If a few of us can do that, then we'd be unstoppable. I could go on for a long time, but I've already been on for over 20 minutes, so I'll just leave it at that for now, and I hope I've given food for thought, and let's see what the comments bring.